everyone, Monique here. Today we're going to talk about why timeouts don't work and what you can do instead. Before we talk about timeouts, I thought I'd reintroduce myself for those who are new here. Again, my name is Monique. I'm a mom of 3. I'm an early childhood educator. I have my master's in counseling psychology, and I have been working with families and children as a parenting consultant, an education consultant for many years now. Right now, I work with a family resource program, creating families for both children and families. I homeschool my kids, I make our own materials, and I sell them on my website. So that's me. So let's get talking about timeouts. So first of all, what's the problem with timeouts? So usually when our children misbehave or engage in undesirable behavior, it's because they want to communicate something to us, or they've lost self-control and have given into their impulses. So when we put our children on timeout, we're not really addressing the root cause of the misbehavior. We are not communicating with them, because often when we put children on timeout, we are also very emotional. Our emotions are heightened, both of us, ours and our children, and we tend to shut down. Therefore, we are not talking to each other. We are not also addressing the point that they've let go of their self-control and given them into their impulses, because we're not giving them the support that they need to be able to get back that self-control. One thing you can do instead of timeouts is to take a break together. So usually when there's inappropriate or undesirable behavior, both of you are feeling a little bit emotional. So why don't you just take time to breathe in and breathe out. Stop what you're doing at home. Let your child also sit with you, and you don't even have to talk about what had happened right away. You can just be quiet and allow each other to let go of the emotions and to really feel what the other is feeling, to be sensitive to each other. This taking a break together also gives you the opportunity to observe your child. So if your child's not verbal, it's your chance to see if your child's hurt, if your child's hungry, to think about maybe what had happened so that you better understand what caused it. If your child is verbal, when you're both ready, when emotions have dissipated for both of you, when you're both calmed down, then you can start asking questions and clarifying, what led to the undesirable behavior to happen. I've found, even in personal experiences, that when we are upset, when something happens that's not what we planned for and what we probably think is not manageable or will add to the things that we need to do at home, we get upset, we get frustrated, and we often overlook asking our children why they did something. When they're older, they're probably able to answer that. When they're younger, they don't. But still, it would be good to get into the habit of asking them what happened, why did that happen, why did you think it was okay for you to do something. And this allows them to also reflect on themselves. It also allows you that opportunity to really understand, because sometimes the result might be something that is upsetting to us. For example, water all over the floor or milk all over the floor. But then you overreact and then put them on timeout when you didn't even realize that they were doing that so that they could give their little brother, a drink of water, because their little brother, who's not able to talk, was feeling thirsty and was uncomfortable, and they wanted to help their brother in that situation. So this opportunity, this chance of asking them questions, instead of putting them on timeouts right away, not only helps you understand the situation, but also helps your child know the process of self-reflection, so that when they're older, they know, before I do something, or when something happens, I can always think back and look in my thoughts and look in how I'm feeling and see, why did I do something? Was it effective? Or did it work for me? Also, instead of giving your children timeouts right away, this time together, this taking a break together, also gives you the opportunity to add to their vocabulary. So if your children are toddlers, nonverbal, this is the time for you to give them labels to their feelings so that they're able to express themselves next time, instead of putting their feelings into action. So instead of them knocking blocks over, they can come to you eventually and tell you that they're feeling upset or they're feeling frustrated. Now, even if your children are verbal, they might still be lacking in that ability to name their feelings and to also express themselves verbally. So you having this conversation with them teaches them the process of looking inside, themselves thinking about, they can ask the questions such as, what am I feeling? Why did I do this? And they will only get that process from you. So this is again a great opportunity for you to teach them how to self-reflect and to give them the vocabulary for it. Another thing you can do instead of jumping into sending your child into a timeout, especially with toddlers, is to give them choices. So for example, my 3-year-old, he's not a toddler, he's a preschooler who you can hear in the background right now. For example, he wants to help me cut apples, and he's insisting on holding the knife, and he can't because it's not safe. So instead of sending him to a timeout, instead of sending him away, then I give him a choice. Would you like to help pick out the seeds, or would you like to help me wash the apples? So give them the opportunity to still be involved, to still have a choice, to still make a choice, but choices that are manageable. Now, for much older children, you can of course always still give them a choice, but when something has happened already and it's a matter of you working through it and finding a solution for it, involve them in that process. So maybe sit down and ask them to write down, okay, what could you have done instead? Or if this is the problem, what do you think could be a better solution? So give them time to think through it. You know your child best. As I always say, this is your unique family, your unique situation, your unique children. So if your children are verbal, talk to them about it. If your children you think are not as expressive or they need time to think, then give them a pen and paper and ask them to write down things that they can be doing instead of engaging in an inappropriate behavior. Or you could even ask them to draw it. Like what I do with Renee most of the time is I ask her, in this, for example, situation, when this happens again, what can you do? Do you want to draw it for mom? And she would usually draw like a comic strip or just a big drawing with like thought bubbles and speech bubbles, and then I can see the process, and then we can again talk about it, and again we can say, this is a good thing to do next time, maybe you can try doing that. So in connection to taking a break together, what you can also do in your house is to have a chill out space. So instead of sending your children to a timeout and saying, why don't you go stand in the corner, or why don't you go on timeout for a bit? Instead of sending that message to your child that you do not want your child around, when sometimes in reality, really that's what we're feeling. When we're both very emotional, we just need time for ourselves. So I said earlier that you can take a break together, but sometimes if you're feeling so overwhelmed, so emotional, and you know yourself that you might just raise your voice or you might get even more upset, then you do need that time apart. But instead of sending your child to a timeout space, maybe call it a chill out space and talk about it even before undesirable situations happen, and say, this is your chill out space. So whenever you're feeling upset, you can go to this. And this can also be like a great prevention method, because whenever they're feeling frustrated, instead of acting out, they can go here. They can read books, they can have breathing exercises. But when something already happens, this is also a space that you can go to so that you can think about what happened, and then when you're ready, when mommy's ready, when you are ready, then we can talk about it. My last alternative to timeout is plain and simple. Hug, have a cuddle. And that's because from your toddlers all the way up to your teenagers, sometimes all they really need is to connect with you. As we go back to what we said earlier about undesirable behavior, that happens because they need to communicate something, or they've let go of their self-control, and they need you to be able to restore that balance back. Before you're able to talk about it, sometimes they just need a physical connection with you for them to know that when they lose control, they still have you. That when they're not able to get themselves together and they're not able to control their impulses, that you're there, that you're steady, and that they can have you as a backup. And that is more often communicated with a touch, with a hug, with a pat, with a kiss. So depending on your situation, ask. Sometimes I would often ask Renee, especially, I would say, do you need a hug, Renee, when she's feeling upset or when she's engaging in something that's not very appropriate? I would often ask her, do you need a hug before we talk? And often she would say yes, sometimes she would say she wouldn't, and that's okay too, because you know that she's able to recognize when she's emotionally ready for something and when she's not. So there you have it. Those are alternatives to timeouts. Have a chill out space, take a break together, hug, connect, and talk about what had happened when you're both emotionally ready for it. Thanks for joining me today. Again, my name is Monique. Please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to this YouTube channel. Also visit me at www.moniqueshome.com. If you're wanting some activities that you could do at home, there are instant downloads over there for you to use at home or even in school. And follow me on Instagram at Monique's Home. I will see you next time, but remember to make every day your own version of extraordinary.